Welcome to Guy Code, a podcast dedicated to imparting dad wisdom to my son, with your host, Koji Steven Sakai, and friends.
Welcome. This is Koji, and this is episode number 43 of the Guy Code. I wanted to impart all of my wisdom to my son, but of course my son already thinks he knows more than me. So instead of trying to tell him now and having it go one ear and out the other ear, I decided to record them here in the hopes that maybe, just maybe, when he's ready, he'll listen to my advice in the future and not make the same stupid mistakes I did. I'll also bring on guests to impart their advice as well. I have no doubt that their advice will be better than my advice. This week, I brought on my friend and writer and dad, Brian. Brian, how are you?
Good, Koji. How you doing, buddy?
I am good. Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Chicago. That's in the middle of the country. I know California doesn't know that, but it's in the middle of the country. And
Wait, there's another part of the United States besides California.
Yeah, it's kind of the third coast. Yeah, you might want to come by. They have good pizza. So anyway, so grew up there. I went to school for marketing and psychology, and while I was there, I was playing in rock bands to pay tuition. And I went into graduate school, and I had a gig to open for some big bands back in the day. For me, that's the 1980s, early 80s, bands like the Scorpions and Foghat. So I kind of toured for a while, quit school. That got old fast. And so I kind of left that, came back to school, finished it. Met my wife, who's a journalist for Chicago Tribune, and she was kind of touring the world, interviewing famous people and stuff. She was actually in Africa for 3 months writing about the Civil War in Sudan. And that's where we got the idea for the book and where I met you, our book 11-1 at Zarmir Press, our sci-fi book. So anyway, long story short, she comes back, and a friend of hers said she had an opportunity to work with this company called Chicago Prostate Cancer Center. And they have this new technique, instead of surgery, they implant radioactive seeds to kill cancer. And I love technology, I love science, and her friend said, well, I can't go watch a procedure, I'll faint. And my wife was like, I'll do it. She told me, I said, hey, I'll do it, come in. So we watched this, and when we got done, I was like, man, I was so fascinated. I started talking to the doctors. It's a huge group. And I said, I've never heard of this. Why is that? He goes, nobody knows this new technology. And, instead of doing all the surgery and all this cutting, we can do this procedure in 15 minutes and save the prostate and give people a new life, right? So I said, oh, let me tell somebody. So we started this marketing company for really high-end technology of medical services that really invasive, so you're not cutting and stuff. And every time we brought one up, someone else would call, hey, I see you're talking about this. How about doing me? And before I knew it, we had this huge medical marketing company. And then my son was born, Tony, in 1995. And I was working 23 and a half hours a day with this company, 7 days a week. And I was traveling, I was meeting with big medical groups. And I said, the whole point of this is to leave a mark on the world. That's going to be my son, pretty much. So we kind of sold the business. We just kept writing books and stuff. And at that point, my wisdom from my son began right there. I kind of became like a helicopter dad, with the hockey and the karate and the baseball and stuff. And fast forward now, he's back in my basement 25 years later, because he got out of the Navy and came to Greenville, where we live now, to go to school. And we're hanging out, having a good time. But that's kind of where we're at right now. Right now, my wife and I are writing books. And, I got to tell you something. This is interesting. We wrote a bunch of screenplays throughout our life. They really didn't do much. And we took this course. It was called 101, Screenwriting 101. I don't know the instructor's name. Maybe you can look it up for me. But if you think of it, you might want to let your listeners know. But we did the course. It was so good. The teacher was fantastic. 3 weeks after we're done, we got a deal for our first screenplay. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're working on the screenplay right now.
Excellent. Yeah, that's my screenwriting course on Udemy. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll put it in the link. Thank you for the plug. I really appreciate that.
3 weeks, literally. And I was calling you, bugging you all the time about it. We have an option. The producer's coming this week. I've been in the studio in Nashville doing the soundtrack, and it's all because of that class.
Great. Well, so we're here to hear some life advice from you. So why don't you get us started on your first life advice for my son, for anybody listening, for anybody?
Well, I was thinking about that, and it's interesting. I was talking about being a helicopter dad, and so my son, starting at 3, we started hockey. I became the manager. We started Kempo karate at 5, guitar lessons at 6, and so basically every second of the day was squeezed into doing an activity. And I started realizing that we were spending more time doing things than we were doing with each other, right? So it takes the brilliance of a 5-year-old. We're fishing one day, just sitting quietly, and the whole time I'm thinking, well, we got hockey tomorrow. He's got to practice his kata moves tonight. And he turns to me and says, "Dad, this is really nice. Just quiet, you and me, and we don't have to do anything." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "We don't have to be anywhere. I don't have lessons." And I said, "Yeah, it is nice." And we just sat and did nothing for 2 hours, just looked at the water. And I realized that I think the life lesson there is that maybe stop moving, stop doing things, and just kind of sit in the silence and enjoy that moment. And it's funny because I was in Nashville last week recording the soundtrack, and all the musicians I play with are really talented. And we're doing this song, and they're all just fantastic. They're doing 64 beats a minute, this fast song, and it got really crowded. And I said, guys, we need a break here. You have to stop. It's so much that you can't appreciate how good it is. And I go, and I came up with this idea. I'm going to make it on a T-shirt and send it to you. But here's one for your son. And this is what I told the guys. I said, the note that resonates the loudest is the one you don't play. Meaning that when you have that stop in the song, people are listening. When you get that stop, they go, "What just happened? What's going to happen next?" And they remember that, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of translated that to a life lesson with my son, that you don't always need to be playing. You don't always need this content. You don't need to be looking at your phone. Just kind of stop and take that moment in and just be silent, So I think that'd be my first lesson.
That's great advice. Actually, it's funny because the pandemic is what made that possible for us. Is that before the pandemic, once he's done with school, I have to take him all these different places. He does everything, and I'm just driving around, and then I watch him do something, and then we quickly drive somewhere else. We have to do something else, and then we get home, and I have to quickly make dinner and get him ready for bed, and then or homework or something. Whereas now we're home all the time, and so it's definitely, I appreciate it a lot more. Although I was always home, so I don't think it's as much as like my wife though. She's definitely home more than she used to be, so she could so definitely that's something that's really, really important. That's why I like to go hiking. I'm not a fisherman. I like to go hiking because although he always wants to keep talking to me, and I keep telling him, I'm like, it's okay not to talk. It's okay just to walk and think about things and spend time together without chatting about Minecraft or something. But
isn't that great? You need that silence. I mean, it's so funny because just this morning, now we live like kind of on a mountain, and across from us is just like 10 square miles of trees that are turning beautiful colors. Mm-hmm. This giant mountain, and my son is in the basement apartment, glued to his computer playing some game, right? And he's got a window next to his computer, and the blinds are down. I go, "Tone, you want to look out the window?" I open it up. I go, "It's beautiful." I go, "Come back on the back deck with me." So we're not there. We had a coffee, and we're sitting rocking in the chair for about 10 minutes. He goes, "Hey, this is nice." I go, "Yeah. Remember when you were 5 at the lake?" He goes, "Yeah, it's kind of nice just to relax and be quiet." I go, "There's your life lesson. Just stop what you're doing and just be quiet,
Yeah, definitely. I can appreciate that. Well, what else do you got for me? I'd love to hear more advice from you.
All right. Well, going back to our marketing company. So we started growing, and I had to start hiring people. And I think one lesson is not to be afraid to fail, because I've done it a lot. And I think everything that's happened to me that's good is because I failed, including the second wife, which is much better. and my business, we got so big that I started, it consumed my life. And we weren't quite big enough to make it a giant company, but a little bit too big to not bring on more people. And so but I think the lesson of that is don't be afraid to fail. Just do something, aim for the stars, just do it. And the second part of it is don't be afraid of success, because I found in myself, sometimes I'll do something, I'll achieve something, and I'll start saying, well, I don't really deserve that. How did this happen? Am I good enough to keep this going? So, fail and succeed. Let yourself do both.
Yeah, I love that. That's something that I have to teach my son a lot. And anybody who listens to this podcast will hear this all the time. But one of the lessons I had to teach him was that in jujitsu, my son is really good at jujitsu.
I've seen that, yeah.
And and he would fight for a while. I noticed he was fighting kids that he knew he could beat.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
kept telling him, I'm like, well, that's not helpful to you. You need to fight people that you can't beat right now,
Right.
because eventually you will beat them. But you need to fight those people. Fighting people you could beat is no work. Is no work. There's no worry. You're not going to get better. And the lesson I always tell them is like chess. Like the thing about chess is that if you're playing somebody better, you get better, and the person playing you gets worse. And so somehow one day you overcome that person because you're just getting better every day. And it might take a year, it might take 10 years, but at some point you'll get better. And I
That's how
think
you get better.
that's yeah. And not and and I love you're not being afraid of success, because I think I think a lot of people sabotage when they get successful.
You do.
And I think that's what, and that's when you need to push harder. Like I love sports. And one of the things is like some people who after that first contract, the first big contract, they never do better. And the difference between the really, really successful superstars and the people that just are stars is that the superstars, when they make that first contract, they want to get better, and they
Right.
get bigger contract. The next one's even bigger, right, than the first one. And they get like money, they get the kind of money that is generational as opposed to just a lot of money, So
That's a really good point. You're only going to be as good as the people you play against. My son, they started their band when they were about 10. They played in my living room, and I was the band manager. And I saw him. He was playing drums. I saw him slowly getting better than the rest of the band, and I thought they were kind of holding him back. I said, "Tone, I know they're your friends, but you're not going to get better playing with people that are less talented. I go, you might want to kind of stretch a little bit." And he kind of started playing with some high school kids that were really good. And I just saw how much he developed and got better and better and better. And it's just like you said, that lesson about, if you're going to play chess or music or anything, play with people above your bar, reach for it. So that's a good lesson.
but a lot of people are afraid of losing, or they don't like. I mean, nobody likes losing, but
Uh,
that's how you get better, right? Is by playing somebody that you could fail to, And actually, it's the other thing I was going to say about this is one of the I listened to the YouTube channel where this guy named Billy Alsbrooks gives all this advice, and one of the advice that really sticks with me is that he always says that if a winner, a person who never loses is not a winner. But the person who's a real winner is a person that loses and comes back and wins again. Because it's easy to be a winner when you're always winning, but it's hard to be a winner when you lose and then have to win again, right? Because that's the real winner, is that person that comes back. Because anybody, he's like, and it's a good point. Anybody could be a winner when you're winning, like consistently. That's easy, but it's hard. Like once you get knocked down, to come back, stand up again, and
There you go.
again
It's
and
getting
win
up
again.
is a hard thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I love that. All right, well, let's hear your third piece of advice. I love your advice, by the way, because I think your advice is right on with things that I would need to tell my son. So this is perfect.
Well, this is kind of a basic, which I'm sure everyone's heard, but about doing something you love. I mean, I had a lot of options in school. I went for marketing and psychology, but I really loved music, and I tried for it. I didn't make the success I wanted, but even now, I'm still playing to play with good musicians, and it's my real passion. Anything creative, writing or music, stuff like that. So I always told my son, try to find something in life that you love and make money at it, and stick with that. And that's a hard thing to do, I mean, I know how successful you are doing something you love, but a lot of people can't achieve that. But once again, it goes back to not being afraid to fail. I was, touring with bands. I've had record deals that fell through, 15 years of no, sorry, no, sorry, no, sorry, one yes, and then it falls. But I just kept knocking at the door, and I still am. I'm 60 years old. I'm still trying to get, songs sold and stuff. So I think just do what you love, and you're happy the rest of your life,
Yeah. How do you find something that you love?
That's a good question. Some of it is just that unknown factor for me. I picked up a guitar at 8 years old, and my folks got me guitar lessons. I hated it. I said, no, I'm done. And then I wanted to meet girls in 8th grade. So I picked up the guitar again, played one song on stage in front of about, 300 people. And literally it was one of those moments out of like Almost Famous. I was just like, man, they're looking at me, I'm playing, and they're loving me. And I'm like, this is it, man. And then it turned more into just being in my basement 6 hours a day playing guitar and getting that ethereal feeling that it's hard to explain. It almost sounds kind of bad, but I always thought like anyone who didn't play music, they can't really be alive. Like every time I pick up a guitar and I write a song, I'm like, this is kind of what, what nature intended for everyone to do. And I feel really bad for people that can't play guitar or write a song. I know it sounds terrible, but I talk to a lot of musicians and we all kind of have that in the back of our head, like, why doesn't everybody do this? It's like, why doesn't everybody fly? Why doesn't everybody, do a beautiful painting? But so to me, the minute I touched the guitar and I felt that love back from the audience, and the first time I wrote a song that was in my head, I was like, this is it. Because sometimes I'll go nuts. It'll be 2 o'clock in the morning and the song will be going through my head. I'll have to get up and go play guitar, wake up my wife and she yells, but I'm like, this is driving me crazy because I hear notes and patterns and stuff. And so I guess that's that and writing are just a passion that just kind of came to me,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't know if I've never heard that jealous, or that people aren't alive. Although that's really interesting because I can't play any kind of musical instrument. Pushing play is the closest thing I could do.
Yeah, I think it's more than just the music. It's the creation of something that wasn't. You've developed worlds. My coolest thing in the world is to write a book and build this world with these characters that are just living in your head. Whether it's a film or a book or everything you do, you took nothing and made something, and even if it's like you're making pottery or a painting, it's like that creation. And, for me, it's music and writing, but I just think that's really extra special.
Yeah. And to kind of build upon your point, I think finding something you love is really important, but I think a lot of times people know what they love. They try to go away from it because of whatever reason. Like, for example, even my writing, when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be a writer, like 13, 14. I didn't know what kind of writer, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to write, but when I looked around in my life, there was nobody who was even close to a writer, and so I didn't think it was a real profession. Right. So then I was like, I'm trying to do everything other than write because I was trying to do everything because I just didn't think it was a viable profession. Until one day I'm just like, this is what I have to do. Hook or by crook, I'm gonna have to do it. Right. And I think that's the challenge, is that a lot of times we do. And so a lot of times when I challenge a lot of kids, just, young adults, that even if they tell me they don't know, I usually tell them, you do know. A lot of times you're just fighting it because of people telling you can't do it, or for whatever. It doesn't have to be creative, even it could be whatever. But it is something really, really challenging.
I think that's a good point you're saying. I guess I was thinking, you said, how did I know I had to do this? It's something that you cannot not do. Like, I could not do music. I couldn't be who I am without doing it. So like you said, you have to write. You don't really have a choice. It's not like, I want to do this, I want to make a living out of it. It's like, I'm doing this. I don't have a choice. I think you have that gut feeling when you find something that you really are meant to do,
Yeah. Like, I think it was Oprah that said, the only way you could be successful is to do something you would be willing to do for free.
Right. Exactly.
And ultimately, even if I wasn't writing professionally, I would still be writing some way or somehow, right? I'd be writing something, even if it wasn't what I'm writing now. And that's a really good, for my son though. I secretly hope he doesn't want to be a creative. It's so much harder.
It's hard.
Being a lawyer is just easy.
Be a lawyer.
Be a lawyer.
They're creative. The lawyers are real creative. You ever hear them? They know how to tell stories. Be a lawyer. That's good. Yeah, it's a tough business to be creative, man. It is. You're right. You're always gonna have that next idea, that next thing,
Yeah. And also just, like you said about no's and stuff, for every one yes I get, thousands of no's. But I have to ask 1,000 people, in order to do that. And so it's super challenging for that. And so the joke I always say in my writing, I think I probably said it in the class that you took, is that one of the things about my, about this career is that I wanted the rest of my life not to be where I have to hustle so much. So, even the girls I was asking, I thought I had a chance with them, as opposed to just asking people I didn't think I had a chance with, because I was like, I'm already getting enough no's in my writing career. I don't need more no's in my dating life. But that's great. I really love that. I appreciate that, and I do, I was joking around about the music, but I definitely feel, like that, when I'm into my writing, when I'm doing it and I feel passionate and excited, I feel that, that thing that makes me want to do it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All right. Well, what's your, I think we're on advice number 4. Is this 4?
I think it's 5, maybe.
Oh, 5. Okay.
Well, we can do 6 if you want.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
here's my final thing. And by the way, I have not thought about this, but it's just while you're talking, I thought about it. Everything we're doing is kind of a life lesson. I think how to succeed and be happy. But I think the greatest, and I forgot who said it, the way to be happy yourself is to make other people happy.
Yeah.
So I'd say be kind to people. I've coming from Chicago. Oh, by the way, I was going to pitch you on this documentary. You want to hear what it's
Okay.
called?
Sure.
It's called Honk, Honk.
Okay.
Okay, Honk. Because in Chicago, there's that split second, that cell splitting second when the light turns from red to green. That guy behind you slams on his horn, right? And I mean, it's anywhere in Chicago. Anyway, moved here to the south. I could get out of my car and sunbathe naked. Nobody would honk. They would just wait for me to be done. I've not heard a car honk. I swear. In 2 years, and I was driving my wife the other day, and I was like, I was at the stop sign. I was like looking at the radio. She goes, the light's green. I look up and people behind me just waving, and I'm like, that's so cool. And it kind of made me realize how important it is just to be kind. Even people on the street, you walk here and they say, hey, how's it going? What a beautiful day. How you doing today? I'm like, at first coming from Chicago, I was like, what do you want? I don't have any money. Leave me alone. But I realized they're just good people that are just that care. So I'd say, if you're kind, it really comes back to you. It really does. It makes you, first of all, you have that positive attitude. And if you love humanity, they love you back. And if you're doing something for the greater good, it makes you a greater person.
Yeah.
So be
That's
kind.
that's really great advice. And one of the things I was reading recently about how one of the best ways to help people through depression is to do something for other people, is to
Exactly.
volunteer to do, because then you're not thinking about yourself. You're not
Exactly.
thinking about how sad things are or whatever shitty things are happening, but you're
Right.
thinking you're giving of yourself, and through giving of yourself, you're able to heal yourself in ways that you're not, that you didn't even appreciate. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of people in this world are so focused on themselves, and they get
Right.
in their own world. And and I don't mean necessarily being focused on yourself as a bad thing, but I think that it's so myopic,
Right.
that you just forget everything. And so one of the things I always tell my son is like, you're a main character in my life and your life, but you're an extra in everybody else's life. And that's like,
right.
and it's important to know that, and that's why one of the things that I don't know if you ever I think I sometimes post this, but me and my son every Sunday, I call it going to church, is every Sunday at 7:00 in the morning, him and I walk 4 or 5 blocks in my neighborhood and we pick up trash. And I tell him, this
Yeah.
is our church because we're sitting here and we're
Yeah.
going to clean up, like, it's for the community because we're making it cleaner, but also it's for us to feel like we're doing something for somebody else. And
That's
it's
correct.
dad and me, son time to do something. But
Yeah.
I think that's like being kind, helping other people, thinking outside yourself, are things that I think this world would be a way better place, especially our country would be a better place
Oh
if
yeah.
we all took that to heart.
I totally believe in that. One thing my wife wanted since we moved here, my son and I put in one of those little libraries out in front.
Oh yeah.
We put books in and it says take one, take one. And the entire block just loves it. We have a bunch of kids, and like right now it's Thanksgiving. So we put Thanksgiving books out there, and Christmas, we put Christmas books out there, and they just love it. They stop. We have a little bench out there. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it just gives me a lot of pleasure to see them enjoying themselves. And
Yeah.
it's just a good feeling. So be kind. I think that's a good lesson.
Until people ruin it. I used to give coffee on Halloween, because we on my street gets like, I get like 1,000 people or 2,000 people
Yeah.
come to my house, and I used to give out I used to make coffee for people, the parents. And one time this parent was like, do you have almond milk? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't have almond milk. And he got mad at me, and I'm like I'm not, I'm not selling it, I'm giving it for free. And I was like so offended. I was like, oh man, like you're ruining it, because I thought like I'm being nice to you. And if you don't want coffee because you don't have almond milk, then don't fucking take it, right? But it just made me feel like I was like, I don't want to do this. I stopped doing it.
Helping some people, man.
Yeah.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's something that I'm trying to instill definitely in my son, to
Yeah.
really start to think. One of the things I'm trying to do with him also is to start a nonprofit, with him and I starting a nonprofit, to start to think about what ways he could help the world, whether big ways or little ways, or to really, because I think that's a super important thing to be able to think, for other people.
Yeah, we did that when COVID hit here in March.
Yeah.
We've got a couple, older folks up and down the block. My son and I started doing like kind of meal deliveries. Like we just kind of showed up and my son would like cut their grass or kind of clean up, and I brought meals, and we had a great time. We just had a great. It just felt so good to do that.
Yeah.
So
And I think if more people did that around, I think this, that's why one of the reasons I actually always thought that mandatory service in our country would help us a lot.
yeah,
Force people to get out of their communities, work with people that are not like them.
Yeah.
Like for example, I went on this camping trip, and it was the first time I ever met somebody from West Virginia. And it was really shocking to me because they're so different. Like, they were like so different than me in terms of their upbringing. But it was really awesome to get to know them in a way that, like that I would never got to know them in any other way. And it made me appreciate that there were other parts of this country. And for them,
yeah.
and for them, like, yeah. And for them to see like somebody in LA wasn't like whatever they thought of LA, that I was like, I was there hiking with them and camping with them, and that I could do whatever they were doing. And that for them to see that, I think was as important as for me to see them, that I'm not just this like libtard that they, that like, that I'm like, I'm very liberal, but I'm not like, I'm cool. Like people are cool as long as they're cool. I'm cool.
Yeah.
But I think that was a really interesting experience. I always thought that like Israel or there's other countries that do
mandatory.
that.
Men, women, it's the greatest thing in the world. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I like it so much that I kicked my son into the Navy for 5 years. I didn't. He wanted to serve on a submarine as a diver.
Oh my God.
And I said, really? He goes, yeah, I want to do something good. Man, I tell you, after 8 weeks at Great Lakes, we went to visit him at graduation. He was always really polite and nice, but he was just like spit and polished and yes, sir, no, sir, yes. It wasn't like, hey, Dad, give me the car. It's like, yes, sir, yes, sir. I'm like, that's cool. And I kind of followed through with him after doing the service like that, because there's nothing about, he was just a number. There's nothing about him was the greater good,
Yeah.
And I kind of dug that the way he came out of it. So
yeah, like a Marvel movie for the greater good.
the greater good.
Well, do you have any other advice?
Let's see. Buy gold and silver because the economy is going to be rocky.
Do you really think that though? Do you really think to buy gold and silver?
Yeah, I have. I have been doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I bought a stock called JNUG, which is a conglomerate of all the different golds, like mining and stuff.
Okay.
I bought it last year at about $7. I won't even tell you what it's at now with the whole pandemic and stuff. It was kind of accidental, but it went pretty high.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
I was looking into it. It's at 168, so I went from 7 to 168.
Wow. So you think it was because the US dollar will fall and there won't be?
Yeah, I think a lot of speculation. It did shoot up in March and April because gold is always going to be gold. It's the standard. But besides that, you can do when it comes to meeting girls. I'm sure your son's dating by now. That kind of thing about finding a polite girl is kind of true. If you let them in the car door, and if your car is locked on the other side, when you have the little button pulls, if she reaches open and pulls it up for you, that's a cool girl.
Like the Bronx Tale, it's a test.
Yeah, it's a little test. Yeah, there's a couple other tests that we shouldn't really talk about till he's older, but no.
I mean, yeah, I think that's about. I mean, like for example, like I always look at how people treat the people they don't need to be nice to, like the waiters or the bus boys or the valet. Because if you're an asshole to them, like that shows. I think that always shows your true character. Because everyone's nice to people that can help you or people with money or something, but if you're an asshole to somebody that you don't need to be nice to, that's that's a real sign that
I couldn't
a bad person.
I've seen people like that. I couldn't imagine it, but you're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have other tests or just the door one? Because I think the door one's totally valid.
Well, I'd stay away from high maintenance girls.
Yeah.
High maintenance meaning if it takes them more than a half hour to get ready to go out, you might want to move on. Or if you're at dinner and it takes them 20 minutes to figure out what they want to eat.
Oh yeah.
Or so high maintenance, even the a lot of makeup, a lot of the fingernails and stuff. It's okay, but it's going to be some work. You're going to have to put some work in there. It's got to be. I kind of like a girl just kind of shows up. We go hiking. We have a beer. We get a hamburger, and everyone's happy. But I've seen some high maintenance that I wouldn't do again. Yeah,
that's hilarious. I mean, I was trying to tell my son that before back in the day before cell phones. Like if I had to go to a mall with some girl, like I just had to sit there. So I'd bring books with me, but it'd be boring. You know, after a while, you're like just bored. Whereas now I could like, if I had to go to the mall and wait for some girl, I could probably wait for a long time because I could play video games and read, and I could even do work. You know, but back then, I mean, you remember like 10 years or whatever, like 15 years ago, that was like you're just sitting there. There's absolutely zero to do. Yeah.
Yeah, because now I have to admit, my wife, she's not high maintenance, but she loves to shop.
Yeah.
So we'll go to a mall, but besides if I don't go to Best Buy or a music store, I could sit with my phone and just watch a movie or whatever.
Yeah, that's like, but it's totally true. I mean, one of the best, one of the things that really that I like about my wife is that she wants nothing to do with me going with her place. She's like, she doesn't need me to go to the mall. She's like, why do you need to go?
That's
like
great.
she prefer that I go, on my own, right? That like, or she go on her own and just get stuff done.
Yeah.
That's her thing.
Great. That's great. Do you guys have other things in common though that you do like to do together, like bowl or craft, make pottery, like
we do pottery. We do no, she's she's very strong, independent woman, and that's what I really appreciate. Like being with somebody that I had to take care of. I'm like, I'm an adult. I don't want to take care of another adult.
No.
And she doesn't need to take care of me, and so that's great. We already have a child that we need to take care of. And that's the most important. That's the most important thing we need to worry about.
Here's lesson number 7, and you kind of struck on it. Date or marry a smart woman, smarter than you, because there's nothing better than that conversation. My wife is so much smarter than me, and just to talk to her, we've been together 20 years now, and we never get tired of seeing each other. Like, I can't wait to hang with her, talk, write a story with her, and so find someone that you can communicate with, and really someone smarter than you, so you can hold conversations. But that's a good point. A strong, independent woman is great.
Yeah, smart is better than stupid.
Yeah.
I think having somebody stupid is not a great look.
No, I tried that, but turned out good, man. Great. Yeah.
But I love the 30 minutes. I could think about a lot of people I've dated that it would take longer than 30. I just anticipate. I tell them, we need to be somewhere like an hour earlier earlier, so that by the time I'm supposed to go, usually
you start adjusting for high maintenance girl time. I know what the initials are, but high maintenance girl time. Yeah, add another half hour. Yeah.
You're supposed to be there at 6, really it's 7, so that you're building in like all this extra time to get to places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would avoid if you could.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I thank you for giving your advice. I loved all your advice. I especially love the advice about the music and what it means to you, because that's great to hear that from a creative person. And thank you everyone for listening to this podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. That's how we get further along. If you want to be on the show, if you have great advice for my son, love to hear it. Join, look us up on all the socials at Guy Code Pod. And thank you again, Brian. Thank you everyone for listening, and peace out, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, it's great.